Friday lunch, made it through the week and you didn't get punched. World's gone crazy, but I got a hunch. We'll all feel better after Friday lunch.
Fantastic, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have some questions about the origin story side of you and your music. We opened it up with you talking about your dad, and you mentioned that your dad sang, didn't play, but you were a musical family. Were there other people in the family that played, or how did you get attracted to the picking?
They were all singers, and I remember going on my first car trip with a family that was not my own, and we were driving, and Mr. and Mrs. Mall, and we're driving, and I thought, well, when do we sing? Because once we got in the car in my family, Dad would sing all the old songs, and there was pretty much the same order as the miles would roll.
Religious folk. Where did the songs come from?
Play party songs.
Play party songs.
I like molasses, plain old country sorghum. I eat it in the summer and the fall. When it gets so full of flies, it resembles raisin pies. Well, that's the way I like it best of all. And he would sing ballads. My family has a version of Barbara Allen that I've never heard anybody else do.
Amazing.
Would sing songs off the hit parade from when he was a kid, Boy Scout songs. I mean, he just loved to sing.
Whatever the song, yeah.
My mother's people were dancers. Mother used to teach ballroom dancing, but they also did what we would call, in the Ozarks, it's called jig dancing, clogging, flat footing, and tap dancing. And I started playing guitar when I was 14 or so to accompany my family singing.
In the style of
Tom Dooley, things like that. My first song, I wrote my first song when I was 5, and it was a blatant ripoff of the Kingston Trio. It was called "Hang Down Your Head, Bugs Bunny."
That's pretty blatant.
Yeah, I don't remember the whole set, but the setup is that Bugs stole carrots and they hung him. And I remember the last verse, which for 5 is not bad. Bugs Bunny's still a carrot lover. He still loves them night and day. The only difference about Bugs is he's eating carrots at Heaven's Gate. For 5.
Not bad, yeah. You tidied it up in a bow, yeah.
Well, I come from a lawyer's family, so it was very black and white apparently in the Newberry household.
So you started with that, and then accompanying your family on guitar.
And then
And you're how old then?
14. And but then I started hearing this on a Paul Simon record, and then I discovered Bert Jansch and Davy Graham. That I had to know what that was.
Yeah.
I mean, I was compelled. That walking bass. And so if you went in my house between ages 14 and 16, you'd hear this.
Yeah.
If I had the door shut, it would be like, bless my parents' heart, because that's the sound of my mother would stand at the foot of the stairs and she would yell up loving and supportive things like, "For the love of God, you're driving us insane." Something else, anything else.
Totally.
But when I left day work, I worked a day job my whole career and would play from Thursday to Sunday hard and then fly back in wherever I was and work on Monday. But I started doing Prairie Home Companions, and
this is early 80s.
Actually the 2007, 2009.
Okay.
But I started doing 4 or 5 Prairie Homes a year, and then doing cruises and things like that. Well, I was doing a solo show that Garrison was doing, and still going out and working and then coming back. And at some point, we did a solo show and we went out to get a bite to eat afterward. And he said, "Do you want to do this all the time?" I said, "I think I do." And he said something so Garrison, but it's true. He said, "You should do it now. You have a great future behind you." And I couldn't stop thinking about that.
Yeah.
And so about a year later, I got a call from Allie Bain and Jerry Douglas to go sing on the Transatlantic Sessions tour in the UK. And I left day work. And I've been out ever since.
Can I ask how old you were when you made that transition?
I made that leap when I was 58.
You're kidding me.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's the thing. Douglas was talking to me. He said, "Well, we all thought that you were doing it full time." It's like, no, man. I was playing as hard as I could on the weekends, or take a week or two, go teach at camps. But I always had a day job.
That's amazing, man. You went from day job to icon status.
Well, I don't know about that. I know some icons, and I don't think I am one. But yeah. I'm a journeyman, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning. But I thank you for your
that's the more important thing.
And here's the thing. I'm going to back up. Thank you. I have a friend who would say, when you tell somebody they don't know what they're talking about, it makes them feel bad. So thank you.
I appreciate being acknowledged for knowing what I talk about. I mean, if you don't know the Transatlantic Sessions, it's a series of recordings made for, I want to say about 10 years or 7 years.
It was BBC. Like most things in the arts, it lost funding, but the tour continues to this day. And for folks who don't know what the Transatlantic Sessions are, it's U.S. musicians collaborating with musicians from Wales and Scotland and Ireland and England. And it's everybody's on stage all the time or on a couch off stage.
It's a captured live performance.
You can sing on anybody's. If you feel compelled, you can go and join in. My year that I was on the tour, it was me and Karen Matheson and the Milk Carton Kids, Rhiannon Giddens, and I'm blanking on there was one more who was one of the singers, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see those roots and branches.
Yes. I think that's why I'm so interested in your music and in this kind of music as well, because of something about, I played music arguably for many years, and it all kind of hovers around something. It leans traditional I've never fully understood that. Unlike you, I didn't really come from a family that was particularly musical or steeped in music, but they were, church going, so there was that, and that was a good source. But I've always, I remember briefly, I was in college. I had a band in high school that had some wheels or whatever. We did some stuff. Went in college and got excited about music. I just wanted to play music all the time. I was, I was interested in it, and I went to my first bluegrass festival, which was Wintergrass in Tacoma.
It must have blown your...
Dude, I tell you what, man. Walking into the doors of that downtown Sheridan, and I didn't know bluegrass music from anything. I had maybe gone to the PSGW, the Puget Sound Guitar Workshop, because there was still something in there. I'd like to see somebody pick. I'm like, what is going on? But I came in the lobby of that place, and it was just like, oh my God, music for its own sake. Normal people playing some of the most beautiful music that you've ever heard.
The way I've come to realize, ordinary folks who are playing extraordinary things.
That is it.
And
man.
they're not ordinary folks. They're extraordinary folks
yes.
as well. My turn on that story is I was at the Boone County Fair when I was 15 in Missouri, Columbia, Missouri. And I was doing all the things that a 15-year-old boy does at the, eating too much cotton candy, riding the rides, checking out girls, do all of that. And I heard fiddle music. And literally, I pivoted. And I walked into the tent where the Boone County Fiddle Contest was taking place. And I walked through those tent flaps and into my future. And every
incredible
one of my heroes, my later heroes, were competing on that stage.
Mm-hmm.
Pete McMahon, Jake Hockemeyer, Taylor McBain.
Mm-hmm. And you had to be part of it.
I had to be part of it.
Yeah.
I had to be part of it. There was one of the greatest Central Missouri Fiddlers was named Pete McMahon. And I would go to fiddle contests when I was in later high school and college, and I'd back up fiddlers. And, you know, when a fiddler gets in the money in Missouri, they pay the accompanist. So I was backing up folks and doing okay. And Mrs. McMahon came up to me, and she was like an emissary. And she came up and she said, "He likes your music. Why don't you come by the house?" So I went to the house, you know, in Missouri. You go to the back door. I knocked on the back door. She said, "He's in there." And she pointed into the living room. And he's already sitting on the couch with a chair right in front of the couch. He's smoking a cigarette. And he doesn't say anything. And he takes his bow and he points at the chair. And I sit down and he starts playing. It might have been Marmaduke's Horn. It might have been Kansas City Rio. I don't know. But he started playing. I started playing. He kept playing. He played 4 or 5 tunes. He stopped. The only thing he said to me the whole visit was, "I see you like a dirty ball cap. I like a clean ball cap." And then he started playing again. Well, about 4 or 5 tunes after that, he got up, lit a cigarette, and walked out of the room. And Miss McMahon was like, "Oh, he had a good time. I could tell he had a good time." So I got another invitation, but this time I went to the MFA store, the feed store.
Yeah.
And I bought a new ball cap, and I left the tag hanging.
Lest there be any doubt.
And I knocked on the door, and he answered the door this time. And he opened the door, and he looked at me, and I did that and jingled my head so the tag had moved. And he said, "Get in here." And we were fast friends after.
Yeah, I bet you were. That's great, man.
Yeah.
Let's hear another one.
Oh, let's see.
Here or there.
Yeah. This is my setup. I'll set this up.
Okay.
Because my mother loved music. And she loved Grand Opera. She loved the Grand Ole Opry. She loved big band music. Her favorite singing group was the Mills Brothers. And that's this song is it's an homage to the Mills Brothers. But her favorite performer was Lawrence Welk. And she was a semi-invalid. She was ill for about 10 years and frail. Mm. About a year before she died, my dad brought home 2 tickets to see Lawrence Welk at the Shrine Auditorium in Springfield, Missouri. You have never seen such gussying. New dress, red lipstick, that last spritz of Estee Lauder before they went out the door. And they go, and about halfway through the concert, Lawrence goes to the microphone and says, "I wonder if there are any ladies in the audience who would like to dance." And my frail little mother ran down the aisle. She beat out every other woman in the place, danced with Lawrence, and got her picture above the fold in the Springfield paper the next day.
Amazing.
So I can't do this song, "Baby I'm Blue," without thinking of my mother and how much she loved music and what a good old mom she was. It's called "Baby I'm Blue." Before you, blue was a color so splendid. I slept the night through. Blue was just something the wind did. I lost you. That's something I never intended to do. Baby, I'm blue. Before you blew through my life like a trade wind. Blue was the mark of a true friend. When I lost you, I learned how much I depended I depended on you. Baby, I'm blue. Before you blew out a spark that was kindred. Who knew that kind of love could have ended? My heart has a tear that will never be mended, at least not by you. Baby, I'm blue. Before you, oh, blue was a color so splendid. I slept the night through. Blue was just something the wind did. I lost you. That's something I never intended. For I depended on you. Baby, I'm blue. It's sad, but it's true. I'm lost without you. Baby, I'm blue.
I don't know what I like more, man, the song or the setup. Both pretty top shelf. Let's go down that direction for a second, because I was going to say we talked about origins and the past, now maybe some present.
Yes.
And there's a couple of things I'm curious about. Well, one of them is you're pretty active on social media.
Yes, sir.
And was that hard to come by? As a, you're a very active touring singer-songwriter, so you are in it to win it right now. I mean, you already had one show today, so you're not resting on your laurels, let's say. Was that hard? Did you have to encounter some initial resistance to the obligation of self-promotion via social media on its various platforms?
If I did posts like "I'm so great," a humble brag post, I don't want to do that. But social media is just like a small town. And if you don't want something to get out, they're going to tell your mama by the time you get home. So you just have to be yourself. And so that's the way I approach it. It's a small town, and I have friends, and I let them know what I'm doing. And I'm blessed. I really am. I go cool places, and I see cool things, and I take pictures of them, and I talk about them. I started something, and this is years ago now, on Twitter. I started taking a picture of myself on my porch in the pandemic and saying, the tagline was "Coffee DM." Coffee day, Coffee DM. And people all over the world respond and show me pictures of their coffee in Ireland and France and Scandinavia and all across America. Coffee DM.
And it's a community of coffee drinkers. And
it's a community of coffee drinkers.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I did not start doing that to have any effect on anything except building community. I wouldn't sell a single show off of it. It's just something that I like to do. But now I go play shows and people bring me bags of coffee, their local coffee.
Oh, dude.
It's great.
You must got a couple pounds out in the car.
I do. I do. And that's the thing, is that if you're gonna be on social media, you can't approach it like a chore. You have to be, for me, I just have to be who I am. When I started playing with the guys who started the Red Clay Ramblers, Jim Watson, Bill Hicks, and Mike Craver, I asked them because they were so compelling. And I asked the fiddler, Bill Hicks, I said, I can't stop watching y'all on stage. That was the thing before I played with them, I would just be fascinated. I said, but you're you're not phony, you know. And Hicks said, "We're ourselves. We're just 10% bigger." So they just act like they knew. They acted like they knew what they were doing, and that for social media or for performing. I just let folks see that here's somebody living life and trying to be joyful, and you know, there's lots of woe on social media. I'm not one of those guys.
No, you're not.
I will let people know what I think, and I'll you know, I'm pretty clear on what I believe, but I also want to give somebody a respite. Give somebody a little place where they can go and take a little breath and go like, oh, that was nice.
Yeah, I mean, your tagline on your Twitter is "Be kind, people need it, you need it."
It's true.
And I found that to be a respite in the maelstrom of vitriol that is the Twitter community.
Well, you know, Dalai Lama said, "Be kind whenever possible. It's always possible."
Yes. Well, you seem to embody it pretty naturally.
Well, I'm a work in progress, but the work is progressing, and that's all we can ask. That's all we can ask.
Man, I don't want to keep you. You've been so generous, but I'd love to hear a song.
A banjo piece?
Yeah, I'd love to hear a banjo piece.
Sure,
If you have time for that.
I do.
And before you cut into this thing, let me
Yes.
get out of here for the next one. But
You sure?
you can go ahead and set it up.
All right.
In case we stumble into another conversation.
I have lived life with intersections of things that compel me, things that I have to know. And this was this banjo tune I had to know what Fred Cochran was doing. He went from fingerpicking the banjo to clawhammer, or knocking the banjo, or rapping the banjo, or overhand. And that transition between fingerpicking on Old Reuben, which is the tune that Earl Scruggs figured out how to be Earl Scruggs on, that transition, I had to know what it was.
Okay, now just so the folks at home, the perhaps uninitiated, God help them, when you say finger picking, do you mean in the three-finger style of the Scruggs?
Yes.
And then the transition into clawhammer banjo.
Transition into clawhammer banjo, and that's when the veil of heaven for me was stretched really thin, and I saw it. And Fred did a thumb lead, not a three-finger roll like Earl Scruggs would play. But I'll tell you what, I'll just play it and I'll show that transition.
Okay, fair enough. I'll just sit here and enjoy it.
And I thought, that sounds great. I love that. But then he switched. Never loved but that one little girl. I'm sorry that I ever loved her. She calls me to weep, she calls me to moan, she calls me to leave my good old home. What did the hobo say to the tramp? The roads are muddy, the woods are damp, and I'm 900 miles from my home. I'm 900 miles from my wife and my child. I wish I was 900 home. My woman says so, I will moonshine no more. I'll chop up my steel and I'll go home. Woman says so, I will railroad no more. Sidetrack my train, I'll move on.
different words than the way Doc does it. Is that from Missouri style?
No, that is Round Peak area of North Carolina.
Okay.
It's funny. The great fiddler Art Galbraith, his family farm backed up to my family farm on the James in southwest Missouri. And I asked Mr. Galbraith one time, I said, "What kind of banjo playing do you like?" And he said, "Quiet." It wasn't until I moved to North Carolina that I really started falling into nests of banjo playing.
One more quick question is:
Yes,
so you're a multi-instrumentalist. We've heard tonight is guitar and banjo. Do you pick up anything else?
I play the fiddle, but I've spent most of my music career playing with some of the great fiddlers, and I love to play Missouri waltzes, and I love to play breakdowns and things like that. But the other thing about playing music for a living is I really like the idea of being able to get everything in one carry. And so I don't take two banjos on the road, although I've got a beautiful new banjo that was sent to me and made for me by Piotr in Poland. And I just bought a mid-1960s Gibson RB100 with a resonator. It's my first resonator banjo.
Mm-hmm.
So I might travel with one or the other with this banjo, which was made by Kevin Enoch of Greenbelt, Maryland. But the thing I love about this music is people having to have it. Piotr Buvas, there was no banjo playing. There was no banjo making in Poland in the 70s. And I said, "Well, Piotr, how did you do it?" And he said, "I took a picture of Earl Scruggs, full-length picture, and I estimated his height, and I took calipers, and I made the banjo from those dimensions from the calipers. And there were no brackets. There were no metal. He learned how to fabricate all of the metal."
Incredible.
And I said, "Well, how did that first banjo sound?" He said, "Oh, awful." But he learned.
Yes.
And so he's making beautiful instruments now, and his son makes mandolins.
Yes. I think that there's been one up note after another, but let's maybe close on one more,
Yes.
which is that some people worry about, I feel like, the tradition of traditional music or the future of traditional music, and I don't know if there's much to worry about because there's a through line to our whole conversation, which is that it's like when you walked into the tent and you were just like your life changed and you had to be part of it, and just like this.
There's a wheel of time in this kind of music.
Yeah.
And it's usually about every 20 years. And so starting after World War II, in the 40s, the Weavers. And then another 20 years, the Kingston Trio and Bob Dylan and the Harry Smith anthology, people investigating those sounds. Another 20 years, maybe 15 years, the Circle album, Will the Circle Be Unbroken?
Incredible record.
20 years after that, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
All of these are entry ports into this kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
Up
Billy
through
Strings
today,
right
Billy
now.
Strings. I will tell you, I did a workshop with Billy a few years ago, and it was a Doc Watson workshop. That young man played the Watson stuff with a fidelity that was stunning, and he's bringing a lot of people into that
Totally.
tent.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing about this kind of music is that you'll hear iconic players like Billy Strings or like Compton and John Hartford and the string band and the Down from the Mountain tour musicians. But then people will want to know where these people learned their stuff from. So they'll go back and they'll listen to the Mississippi Sheiks.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll listen to Flatt and Scruggs and they'll listen to Bill Monroe. And so it's wide open. And I don't know if it's YouTube, but young people are playing so great. We had to go and talk to folks and
track them down.
And me trying to figure out, this is what clawhammer looked like to me. I couldn't figure out what it just looked like this. That's it.
Yeah.
I didn't. Was there like brushes that came out, and some wording things?
I mean, when you were just playing that last song, you wouldn't know unless you'd done it yourself slowly.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like there's anything happening in the right hand.
I'm gonna play one more.
I'd love it. Maybe play us out. And thank you guys for catching this current episode of Friday Lunch. We're gonna have we're doing this every other week now, and partly because we're really up in the game here. We got some wonderfully talented people and people who are my personal. It's really just my opportunity to talk with people I admire and love and want to know better. And so we have many more of those folks coming up. And this week, I just want to say thank you so much to my new friend, Joe Newberry.
Thank you for having me. An honor.
What are we going to listen to?
We're going to listen to Lost Gander. Geese and ganders mate for life, and when they get lost, they call to each other. And this comes from the playing of D. Hicks on the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee. And he had one of those black coffee and cigarette voices.
Mm-hmm.
He'd say, "Are you ready?" And then he would play this unearthly, beautiful music with harmonics between the nut and the bridge. Lost Gander. Here they come. There they go.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Hey, if you like that video, do me a favor, like and subscribe. And why not watch this one? Did I do that good? Did I do that right?